Coming up on Movieology, secular movies. Are they gold mines or minefields? Should Christians avoid secular movies altogether? If not, why should a Christian watch secular movies? Find out right now on Movieology. Today's episode is brought to you by American Vision. For a chance to win a $20 gift certificate to American Vision's online store, be sure to like Movieology on Facebook, then post a comment to this video within 24 hours. American Vision has a vast array of phenomenal worldview-related books and DVDs available at AmericanVision.com, so be sure to enter to win the $20 gift certificate as this contest ends soon. Welcome to Movieology, your ticket to engaging the spectacular world of films from a bedrock of biblical truth. I'm your guest host, Michael Minkoff. You can socialize with Movieology at movieology.tv, at facebook.com/movieology, and twitter.com/movieologytv. So, I'm a guest host. That's right, I'm different. My mama says I'm special. I'm filling in for Joseph while he's on vacation. For my guest appearance, because uniformity is not on my short list of virtues, and yes, you're right, it is a very short list. Anyway, I'll be doing something completely different. I'll be talking about why you should watch secular movies. If you've been watching Movieology up to this point, you are already familiar with some of the criteria we use to evaluate movies, but I want to take the time to present a biblical foundation for our approach. If you had lived 150 or 200 years ago, your familiarity with the popular opinions and philosophy of your day would largely have depended on the scope of your library and your access to popular journals, periodicals, and newspapers. But in our day, wittingly or unwittingly, most Americans develop their worldviews from the news and entertainment programs on TV, the music in their iPods, and the images on the silver screen. We can bemoan the loss of literacy another time. The fact is that in order to understand your times, you must engage, to some degree or another, with the media. Now, if we are going to watch movies, we need to learn to watch them biblically. When Paul preached his sermon on Mars Hill, he could have begun with, "You're all a bunch of superstitious Greek pagans, see? And you're all going to hell unless you believe in Jesus, see?" And this statement would have been true, for the most part, but it probably would have disengaged his audience. Instead, he included two pieces of popular Greek culture, a quotation from one of their own poets, and an allusion to a specific idol to an unknown god. He starts his sermon with the latter, immediately informing the Greek listener that he had taken the time to familiarize himself with what Greeks considered important and noteworthy. Paul began with what his audience already knew from Greek culture. He then used this knowledge to lead them to their need for Christ. We can take a cue from this. If we watch movies with a discerning mind, we can use them to understand our times. We can think like men of Issachar from 1 Chronicles 12:32. Rather than giving our culture a forgettable call to a general need for Christ, we can tell unbelievers just how badly they need Christ. We can show them that their movies and art are crying out for Christ, like idols to an unknown God. Consider the movie Batman: The Dark Knight, written by director Christopher Nolan and his brother Jonathan. One would think this movie, at first viewing, to be a smartly written, well-directed action movie, engaging and fun, but surely not philosophical. But looking a little closer, we see that at its heart, it displays a fractured and empty neo-existentialism, struggling and failing to find a sure foundation for justice. From the beginning of the movie, an extremely realistic case is made for the depravity of man. The Joker is basically the protagonist of the movie, stealing the show, largely proving his single philosophical premise, that humans are all basically evil. Most of the Joker's social experiments prove his point decisively, and for the most part, the movie seems very natural and unforced in its exposition of the innate depravity of man. But the screenwriters couldn't leave it at that. Joker couldn't win, could he? Thus begins a futile foray into Fantasyland. to create the most pivotal and at the same time the most unbelievable moment of the movie, where a group of convicts on a doomed ferry vote to sacrifice their own lives for the cause of a non-pragmatic conviction of transcendent morality. This scene makes no sense at all. The movie was already building a believable and logically coherent view of the world. There is none who does good. No, not even one. Even Batman is a morally ambiguous figure, a vigilante dispensing justice outside the law, a dark knight. In this environment, where can one turn for a sure foundation for justice? After the movie had already established that men are predictably self-serving, it then expects us to believe that men, and criminals at that, are basically good? After the ferry scene, the movie's logic just continues to deteriorate, proving again and again that the Nolan brothers are grasping at straws, desperately attempting to escape a conclusion that the movie has already established beyond a doubt, that a merely human justice is impossible. They justify their sudden e-brake turn into Fantasyland with some voiceover commentary from Batman himself.
Sometimes the truth is not good enough. Sometimes people deserve to have their faith rewarded.
In other words, reality may deny our confidence in men, but we must still have faith, though it may be a futile faith without any real object. And without this empty faith, our existence would be completely meaningless. Yeah, it's really satisfying of a philosophy. Had the Nolan brothers followed the logical arc of their own creation to its natural conclusion, they would have had only two choices. One, seek justice beyond humans in the decrees of a transcendent God, or deny the possibility of justice altogether and succumb to the tyranny of evil. Obviously, they didn't want to do either, so instead they embraced a contradictory Platonic existentialism Frankenstein monster. And they attempted the simultaneous belief in both the intrinsic goodness of man and the futility and vainglory of human attempts at an objective standard of ethics. An irrational conclusion, untenable in reality, possible only in the carefully manicured fantasy world of their movie. Could you run that by me again? They attempted the simultaneous belief in both the intrinsic goodness of man and the futility and vainglory of human attempts at an objective standard of ethics. An irrational conclusion, untenable in reality, possible only in the carefully manicured fantasy world of their movie. Was that good enough?
Yeah.
Sorry, Nolan brothers, but the truth is good enough, and it is all we really have. The Dark Knight, then, is a cry for help. It longs for the satisfaction of Christ, and it belies the fact that all of its answers cannot satisfy the very real problems it so expertly exposes to the audience. As such, it is excellent material for evangelistic discussions in spite of the fact that its message, when all is said and done, is anti-Christian. By mining the mind of this and other movies, we can better understand our times, its needs, longings, and contradictions, in order to engage this culture, in order to show compassion for the position of the lost, in order to reach them where they are with the hope and truth of Christ. What is a movie you have found to be great for Christians to discuss, and what about that movie is so unique to Worldview Matters? If you can think of one, tell us about it in a comment. And if you have a movie/worldview question you would like us to answer, please share it with us. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Michael Minkoff, your guest host. Until next time, you have been watching Movieology, to present a biblical foundation for our approach. Mining minds. How can movies help you understand your time? In our culture of forgetful... Sorry. And you could have a bunch of Little Caesars like bouncing around. Atheistos, now in chocolate. Consider the movie The Batman. So thus beguns, thus beguns. I'm probably an outtake mine, or an outtake minefield, if you know what I mean.